Good morning. Good morning. Java Delight will uplift you. Stay tuned. The show is about to begin. Grab your coffee. Stay tuned. This show is about to begin.
Good morning, everyone, and welcome to this fine day's episode of Java Delight. It appears that Brandon is still feeling under the weather today. He says he's looking a lot like Casper the Friendly Ghost, and Gavin, I think, will be joining us, but he's not feeling 100%. You know, it's these youngsters that hung out here in Vegas, and they're not feeling too good once they got back to Cleveland. I'm not sure if it was here in Vegas, the drive back to Cleveland, or getting used to Vegas and not being used to Cleveland. Anyhow, I think that really what happened is it was just a pretty grueling trip to drive all the way out here to do the show, spend tremendous energy and little sleep while doing the show, and then jumping right back in the car and heading back to Cleveland. That's a lot of driving, a little sleep, and a great opportunity to really wear down your immune system. So if there was anything that was out here, it's something that, they basically had an opportunity to catch. So I see, there he is, Gavin.
Hello.
You're looking better than you said you were.
Yeah, it's all in my face. It's nothing in my stomach, thankfully, but it is all in my face. Everything feels congested, and everything it's like one big headache.
Well, it's there's all kinds of things that are going around. This change from being isolated to being back in the crowds is taking its toll, I think, on a lot of people, because we spent 18 months, making our immune system less effective than it's ever been because of being in lockdown, because of the mental stress, and the physical separation and all that kind of stuff. So
speak for yourself, man. I kept meeting people. I was working in restaurants the whole time. I had maybe 2 weeks off, and then I was all back with people.
Yeah, but were you back with people at the same level you were before?
Pretty close, yeah.
Were open, you were cooking, but you weren't out there working with a dining room full of guests and stuff like that. I think, right?
It's pretty close. We are half open for the dining room, and then I was still doing Tinder dates and stuff like that. So
Tinder never quit.
No, it did not. It just blew up even more. Yeah. They put a thing on there that said, "Hey, do virtual dates." No one's doing your virtual dates. Get out of here. You're silly. What are you talking about? We're not doing that.
Yeah, well, here in Vegas, we were shut down to where I just didn't feel like going out because people were wearing masks if they were out. There were the restrictions. There were people that none of the entertainment was going on. So there was no entertainment, free entertainment downtown or in any of the casinos. That was all shut down. So for me, there wasn't a whole lot of value in going out and doing things. And most of the restaurants for a long period of time wouldn't allow guests to dine in. So again, that's just another thing that kind of kept me from going out. But I think that had there been anything that was exciting, I would have been out because I'm I'm still not afraid of the vid. I'm more afraid of the vax than I am of the vid. So I did go over to my parents' house the other day because both, Gavin, you are Gavin. Brandon.
Gavin. Last I checked, anyway.
Yeah. Brandon wasn't feeling good. I slept an entire day right after the show, but then I started feeling better. And I think that part of the reason I was able to feel better is because I did almost sleep for 24 hours and I was coughing stuff up and things like that. But then over the course of time, things have subsided and I'm back to getting, 2 hours of sleep before our show. Last night, the same thing. I was awake until 3:30 in the morning. And then I got a couple hours of sleep and came back on, but I'm feeling pretty good. I do take care of myself as much as possible. I do have a morning drink that you guys see me drinking every morning. It's primarily a bunch of B vitamins, but it's helpful for the brain and staying at least healthy from that kind of perspective. But I think a lot of people are feeling different things. And you guys just beat the crap out of your bodies and the drive out.
Oh, yeah. Yeah. No, between the driving, I think that's what really, because that's when I noticed Brandon really started to feel it. So I think the stress from the trip itself, because it was a very, pardon me. It was a very important convention. So the stress from the trip itself, along with all the time being in the car. And then while we were on the trip, we ate very well. But when we were in the car, we did not. So the exhaustion, the dramatic time zone changes, there's a lot of stuff that just went into it.
Yeah, actually, time zone changes. I've flown around the world and flown over to Japan and Korea and things like that when I was living over there. Going west was always a lot easier for me than going back east. So when I went over there, usually I didn't feel jet lag much at all. But when I came back, it was horrendous. That at least was for me. So you spent just enough time out here to start getting adjusted to it. And then you headed back that direction. So that's just another thing that may be aggravating how you guys are recovering from the trip as well.
Yeah.
But then, you got guys like Mr. Bob Seymour saying, kids, man, you can't handle this stuff. And lightweights.
That's fun.
Brian Tracy saying, hey, he drives that way all the time. And that's one thing about truck drivers that I have immense respect for. The amount of time that they are on the road driving in their trucks, concentrating on the road or trying to concentrate on the road when you got a bunch of people around you. And especially right now where I think Brian's still able to operate under the COVID rules, which relaxed a lot of the driver rest periods. You can end up doing a lot of driving, a lot of wake time, and still be behind the wheel for a significant amount of time. So, and when, being able to do that, to me, they got my respect, because I have a hard time driving from where I'm staying right now to my house, which is 20 minutes, 30 minutes away, and staying awake on that drive. So when you're driving 8 hours a day and things like that, that's a challenge. I've driven across country in the past, fighting the sleep or, trying to stay awake during that time, trying to stay, concentrated on something. It's a challenge. It's a challenge. So when you guys came out here, I could definitely understand what you were feeling.
Yeah. Absolutely. So I told everybody, I'm sure you saw in the chat, and I just told, Brandon and John are feeling great. I told them, hey, just drink a lot of water if you can and get some rest. That's all you can do.
Yeah, absolutely. And again, a lot of it has to do with really maintaining, like you're saying, hydration and maintaining our mental health during these times when we're not feeling good physically, because we tend to also drag down our mental health, and the two of them combined make things more challenging. So definitely looking at it from that perspective. Let's see. See, Mandy's out there. Hello, Mandy. Good morning, and thank you so much. Everybody here is trying to do what we can to continue to maintain that positivity across our community, and at the same time recognizing that Gavin now is putting on his game face in order to be able to do the show, even though he's not feeling 100%.
Yes. How was your night, bro?
Yeah, I don't know what else to turn to. So there was a contemplation today about do we do the show, and I was like, yeah, let's absolutely do the show. I'll do the show by myself if I need to, and we've got a great guest coming up on the second half of the show, who is about teen mental health, and has been a TEDx speaker and on a number of different shows. So I think that's going to be an amazing person to listen to, and part of the show that is going to give additional tools to us to deal with a lot of the challenges that we experience in life.
I'm very interested in what he has to say, considering I was a teen yesterday. She. Okay. I'm very interested on what she has to say, considering I was a teenager yesterday. So.
Yeah, for me, it was maybe a couple of extra years ago before when I was a teenager.
Yeah.
But I think that there's going to be real interesting conversation, because I look forward to talking about the differences between when I was a teenager and when you were a teenager, and the different stresses and the different ways that we had to deal with stress, because hell, we didn't have social media back when I was a kid. And I'm wondering, is that part of the reason that there tends to be more of a stress level now in teens today? Because there was bullying back when I was a kid. There was name calling. There was kids, that were the tough kids and the kids that got picked on, and the jocks and the cool kids and the nerds and all that kind of stuff. But there wasn't social media to be able to really, expand that beyond those people in your class. For the most part, out on the playground, that was where you normally experienced some of this stuff, maybe when you're walking to and from school. But in today's world with social media, it goes beyond that. And then this whole concept of likes and followers and all of that kind of stuff starts to play into people really looking more for some sort of an external way to feel good about themselves, as opposed to internal. And then they read these things, and internally they start to believe them, and as a result they're feeling worse than they would have otherwise. So yeah, it's definitely something that's different, and I think it'll be great kind of getting your perspective, my perspective, and her perspective, because I think that kind of takes in maybe three different generational groups, if you want to call it that.
No, absolutely. I agree with that. I remember, have you seen the movie, I think it's called 8th Grade by Bo Burnham?
No, I haven't.
So it's an independent film. Bo Burnham is a comedian, but it's not a comedy movie. It follows the life of a 8th grade little girl, and how she's struggling with social media and with being accepted in life and feeling accepted in general and finding her place in the world. It's in all honesty, when I first saw it, I fell asleep halfway through because I thought it was a comedy. So I expected a comedy. And then when it wasn't, I got bored with it. But then I ended up watching it again, knowing what it was. And it's a very, very raw and honest film. There's a lot of awkward silence in it, because when you're in 8th grade, when you're that pubescent teen, there's a lot of sort of awkward silences in your life. It was definitely a very, very interesting show. I'd highly recommend it.
And that awkward silence is really kind of an interesting thing.
Yeah.
A lot of times,
I'll be right back.
Sure. A lot of times when I'm doing even this show or one square at a time, there's awkward silence in terms of myself. And oftentimes you'll see my eyes go up in a direction or off to the side. And that's kind of me searching my brain for a response before actually saying something. And in the past, when I was like in the military and going through speaking training, for speeches, and also outside of the military, after I got out of the military, they oftentimes say, you shouldn't have a lot of awkward or extended pauses. But for me, I think it's better than saying something that you're going to have to backtrack on or not really have thought through what the meaning is going to be before it comes out. So I would rather have that pregnant pause or whatever you want to call it. And those same things happen in life. And sometimes we feel like if we don't have something that we can say, we fill that space with words, or we fill that space with something that may get us in trouble later on. My mother tends to do that. She tends to find any opportunity that there's silence to fill it with something. And what she fills it with is like, where the hell did you come up with that idea? And then you're starting to backtrack on those. So, those same types of things happen and people make fun of those. And if you're a kid, they may even make more fun of those pregnant pauses, those extended quiet periods and things along those lines. And then there's always kids that will fill those gaps with something. My niece is one who loves to get up and just entertain people.
Yeah.
If there's an opportunity, if there's silence, she's gonna step in and fill it. And she's pretty hilarious in what she does. She comes up with her own songs. She comes up with her own dances. She's 8 years old, and she's really pretty outgoing and has no fear of, talking to people she doesn't know or getting up and just being herself regardless of what people think. And sometimes those types of kids get put, they're told to sit down or be quiet, or sometimes people make fun of them, and you got to do it in a way that's going to be empowering as opposed to disempowering. And I think some of that comes up in terms of the way people see themselves as they continue to grow, because those are the formative periods of your life. And if you're told to shut up when you're expressing yourself, as you grow older, you may feel that and keep to yourself at times when you really need to reach out. And that's why we're here, trying to allow a platform for people to listen in and potentially reach out, because you may not have sometimes going to the closest people to you is also the hardest thing. It's actually easier to go to people that are arm's length away.
Why do you think it's easy to why do you think it's so easy to confide into strangers?
I think it's because there's less of a history with them. There's less prejudging, which is something that people talk about. Judgment, and usually those that know you already have, or you believe they have, some sort of a belief on who you are or how you are. And as a result, you kind of you've already integrated that. The other thing is, because they are close to you, you feel that if you expose something that is not a strength or is causing you challenges or maybe embarrassing, you want to keep it to yourself. But when you talk to a stranger, they don't know you. You may not even see them again. So you get that opportunity to open up in what you at least consider to be a more comfortable zone than when you're talking to people that really know you closely.
I think it's kind of funny, though, because I feel oftentimes when we do open up to somebody like that, then they become a character in our life. So while they were a stranger, they no longer are.
Yeah. Yeah, it's interesting. I remember one time I was in Chicago. I was actually sitting at a bar at a hotel downtown. I was at a conference or something there, and my girlfriend at the time was supposed to meet me there. And I sat next to this woman, and the next thing you know, she's opening up to me about her house had just been like burglarized that day, but she still had to come down to work, and she felt violated, and she opened up to me, and then she was crying as she's kind of working through her feelings.
Yeah.
And the next thing you know, she's like, will you come home with me? And I was like, no, I can't do that.
Your
My
house
girlfriend's
got robbed.
coming
It's not
here. But this is a conversation that went deep into her past. It wasn't just that feeling a violation from the burglary, but oftentimes that triggers something that was other events in your past.
Yeah, and they get
that you
that
may not have
points of
thought about.
oversharing.
Yeah. So, those types of things happen. This whole COVID thing and challenges with people not having an income source because their job was eliminated or the business was shut down during this time, and people have gotten behind on their bills, or people have gotten behind on their rents, and they're experiencing these types of things, but many times they don't want to or feel comfortable talking to the family because they've maybe had the talk from their family before, like, you're irresponsible, or you should be able to figure this out, or do something, get out there and do something. And that's not necessarily the most positive way to address the situation. And if you talk to people outside of that trusted group, or maybe not the trusted group, but the familiar group, then you can open up about what you've done, talk about what you can do or can't do in a more secure environment. And then you can process it yourself better so that you can find other opportunities or other ways of dealing with things. And that's going on in today's world as well. I know here in the US, because I know we've got some international guests here too, where we've had the government step in and put in, rules about being evicted and stopping you from being evicted. And they were extended and extended and extended. The last extension I knew of was until the end of July here. I thought I saw something that we may, I think Brian Tracy is saying it may have been extended to the end of August now. I haven't seen that yet, and I was just looking at some stuff yesterday. But it's one of those situations where what they were really saying is we've got about 30 million people that are being affected by this non-eviction rule.
Yeah.
And as a result, they haven't paid their rent. Many of them, very honestly, don't have the ability to pay their rent. Others are taking advantage of it because they can.
Why wouldn't they?
Right. And what it's doing is pushing that financial burden onto the landlords, many that are smaller landlords. And so you're taking it from 30 million people that are affected and not able to pay their rent, and then they're pushing that financial burden on 10 to 11 million landlords. And a lot of landlords are, they have one house or two houses that they bought and they've been renting out, and now they're having to pay the price at this point in time. So the government's having a hard time trying to figure out how to unravel this without putting people out on the street, and at the same time not continuing the situation where the landlords are getting hurt. And it's a challenge. It's definitely a challenge.
Not only that, but how do you think schools are going to be affected? A lot of the kids, they had to either they like my little brother, he did online school, he did half and half, and then he finally ended up going back into physical school because he just was not able to do the online school. I think he's in the 4th or 5th grade now. What kid around that age is able to sit on a computer all day and just stare at a screen at home where he has, all of his video games and other distractions and whatnot that he can go do at any moment. So I know a lot of, especially in Vegas, there are a lot of kids who either drop out or have that option to, and probably don't even have the access to do the online programs that a lot of other kids across the country had. So they pretty much just missed this entire last year. So they're either going to have to redo it or they're just going to end up dropping out.
Well, I think that there's a tremendous challenge there. We've basically got, I wouldn't call it a lost generation, but a generation of kids in school that have potentially lost a year. And the people that tended to have lost that year of school are also the underserved. The ones that were already having challenges, with school, having the resources to do school, having the support at home to make it through school or to ask questions about school. Those are the kids that are the most affected because they may not have had the computers, the internet, those types of things, nor did they have somebody at home that kind of encouraged them or maybe
kept them on track.
Kept them on track. So you have a choice as a school of promoting them to the next grade, but them not, basically not having an entire year of school. So if they mix again with the kids that did go to school during this year, which they would when they go back to school, then you've got a big challenge in the classrooms. Teachers are going to have challenges because there's a big delta between what kids have in terms of their back knowledge and learning and teaching.
Well, especially in things like mathematics, where it's all building blocks. One year builds off the next.
Right. And if you hold them back, there's a psychological aspect to that where, kids always expect that I'm going to go from third grade to fourth grade. I'm going to go from fourth grade to fifth grade. Now you're going to say I was in fourth grade last year and I get to go back into fourth grade this year. That is a psychological challenge that you have to deal with because the kids are going to feel like they made no progression, which they may not have from a learning perspective, but in their minds, they are a year older and they're going to go back to the same grade that they were in.
It's like the blip in Marvel.
Yeah, the blip. There's another a show on commercial TV about an airplane that kind of disappeared with its with all the people on it for 5 years, and then they came back.
I've heard about that. I can't remember the name of the show, but I have heard. Let me look that up really quick. Why is it that schools don't teach us about business subjects?
Well, I think schools don't teach us about life, nor do they teach us about business subjects from how to think entrepreneurially. These are factory schools. Our traditional school systems were actually developed to create factory workers.
Yeah.
Which is, people that were going to go into the assembly lines, people that were going to go into hierarchical large companies.
Manifest. That's the name of the show. Sorry.
What was it?
Manifest.
Yeah, Manifest. I watched the full season of that and I kind of liked it. And it's an interesting concept because, you've got like one family where young kids, but 5 years when you're 8 years old to 13 years old is a big gap versus 5 years when you're 40 years old to 45.
Yeah.
There's a big difference. And I saw some of that where the one sibling wasn't on the plane. So they're that much older now than the people that were on the plane. Pretty interesting concept, but that's kind of what we're going through, like you said.
You can do that now with like sending people into space due to time and relativity. Like if you took somebody and you put them on the moon, theoretically they would age slower than everybody on Earth.
Yeah, and one of the big things there is the closer to the speed of light, the slower time actually goes. So there's as you get toward the speed of light, which is things that we haven't yet approached, but there are seconds that are being lost by people that are going to space and coming back. When we go to Mars, it's going to be a little bit more pronounced, but still we're talking minutes maybe.
Yeah.
Because we're still not really getting close to the speed of sound, but we're going a lot faster than we go here on Earth. And then you've got the additional changes and things around gravitational fields and those types of things, which also affect your aging and cellular aging and things along those lines. So it'll be real interesting as time goes on, as we get more advanced in terms of the way that we can travel. Then those types of blips come into play when we put people into suspended animation for 40 years as they're traveling to some really distant location. And they come back after come back to consciousness afterwards. Their body hasn't aged the same way and things along those lines. So pretty interesting concept. We see it in science fiction. A lot of science fiction is starting to become reality. And a lot of those shows that were on TV, like Manifest, was created before COVID, but yet some of the same things that they're experiencing in the blip are really experiencing in people's lives today. It was just a year or 18 months, but same thing is happening.
That's crazy to think that eventually there will be other worlds where you wouldn't be able to take a vacation. Like you want to be able to take a vacation really to like Jupiter or something like that. Because by the time you got there and then came back, everything would be so drastically different. You'd basically just be almost time traveling. You'd be going through a different life.
Yeah, absolutely. I want to kind of commend our community right now. I see in the background there's a lot of discussion going on with Mandy having some challenges, and the rest of our audience kind of sharing their thoughts and support and energy. And a big part of getting through the shit that is going on in our lives has to do with the energy of those around us and the energy that we then can take on ourselves. And that oftentimes helps us to get through situations that we may have otherwise felt stymied and having no place to go because we didn't have the support group around us to be able to at least talk about what we're doing. Because oftentimes, again, through just talking about what we're experiencing, we oftentimes can come up with new ideas on how to deal with it as well.
Yeah. And then bouncing back, I know we got a topic for a second, bouncing back to Kunis's question. Some schools, they do offer like business classes or economic courses and things like that, but they're usually electives and they're usually swept under the rug. I think that just goes back to what, Brett, you were saying about how it's a factory kind of thing. It's made, the schools are set up right now to have you be able to sit in line, go by the bell, and do your job and go home.
Yeah. And the other thing to kind of remember, there's some real validity of this, especially when you get into college. I was actually talking with a person yesterday that I may employ their services as a virtual assistant support, but we were talking about when I was a consultant and I actually had to implement things that strategic consultants came up with. And strategic consultants and like professors in college, oftentimes they talk in theory and they talk the theory of business. Well, the theory of business and the reality of business are two different things. You can theoretically come up with great ideas, but they can't be implemented because of people don't do what's theoretical. They do what's real. And the one thing that is oftentimes said is those who can't teach, those who can do.
Yeah.
And when you have teachers that have gone, basically from college right into teaching their entire life, they don't have exposure to business from an entrepreneurial perspective. Professors that are in college, that are teaching college courses, oftentimes have never been out in the real business world.
Yeah.
They have been in the theoretical business world. And
well, if they did, the majority of them wouldn't be teachers.
Right. I mean, you do have some teachers that do go from business and go into academia, or you have some that are there for sabbaticals and things along those lines where they do have real world experience, but oftentimes they don't. So when you talk about what's being taught in school, it's being taught from what teachers learned in books, what teachers learned in school, not from what teachers learned in experience of business.
Yeah.
And we have to change our school system. And there are, there's a number of programs now out there in schools that are augmenting the traditional school system around entrepreneurship. There's a group called the Genius Group. And one of my friends here in Vegas, she pretty much runs this program throughout the United States, trying to partner up with schools using funds that are contributed by businesses, and then providing programs to kids as young as like 12 to 13 years old till they graduate high school, where they go into a camp and they are trained more about what it's like to be an entrepreneur and how to think about things from an entrepreneurial perspective, and how to develop a business plan, and how to look at executing a business plan and those types of things. And I think it's going to be those types of alternative educational systems that are really going to have to really play that role, because I don't see the traditional school system making significant changes in that direction.
Yeah. Now, I've noticed, so they just rebuilt my old high school. They completely tore it down and then rebuilt the whole thing. One of the things I noticed is they actually made a lot of different design changes specifically to start to change the way they educate students. There's a lot of different glass. There's a lot of different glass like rooms, and a lot of windows all throughout it. The way, even like the stairs that they have stuff written on the walls all throughout the high school and everything. So I have noticed that they are trying to change it a little bit. It's something that's going to take a lot of time, because in all honesty, a lot of people did not want that school to be torn down. The only reason why they did is because the city felt like it would have cost more to try to redo and rebuild the school from what it was than to just start from scratch. But it's going to be a slow process, because there are a lot of really old schools around the U.S. specifically that people hold sentimental value to and don't want to see go. But over time, I feel like maybe in the next, 10, 15 years, we'll start to see a dramatic change in education. We'll have to, the way that the world has changed. People aren't getting the same jobs now that they did 10 years ago, let alone 50 years ago.
Well, absolutely. And that's a whole nother thing that we talk about, and it's a stressor in people's lives, is that, the technology today and the jobs of today are completely different than the factory jobs of 20, 30 years ago. And what we're teaching kids in school is normally not around the new technology that's in business. It's about the old school. And there is in my opinion, there's a need to understand the foundation of things. There's a need to understand your basic math, your basic English, those types of things. But we also need to really bring into the school system these new technologies earlier, these different jobs that are out there, the technical jobs, the programmers, the whole way that companies are built around social media platforms and marketing around social media platforms, as opposed to TV commercials and those types of things. So a whole different way of life. And unfortunately, school systems tend to be like giant ships on the ocean, and trying to get them to turn takes a long time and a lot of energy. And it's also tied to politics, and it's tied to conflicting belief systems and things along those lines. So that's why I think our school systems are so far behind and not really helping kids to necessarily prepare themselves for the new job market. That's also going to be where the trade schools or the tech schools are going to replace colleges. And I think that's important. In fact, the person that I was talking to, she is 28 years old, but she's wise beyond her years in terms of how to market in social media and leverage social media and do these things that I was a director of IT, but I don't understand how to do all this social media stuff. I don't know how to market social media. Those are things that are beyond my knowledge at this point in time. But she decided that she, rather than go to college, went to a 9-month program on marketing, which in that program really focused on a lot of this social media marketing and how to create brands for people and things along those lines in today's world as opposed to yesteryear. So her knowledge is not dependent on her having a college degree. It's about having street smarts and about having this technical degree, which was very focused on what it is today that is needed in business without having to take the humanities and the history and all that kind of crap, which you have to take when you get a bachelor's degree. So I think that that's the direction that school is really going to be able to, has to go. And when we're talking about providing free schooling, which I don't agree with, because I think you need to have skin in the game in order to really get the most out of it. It doesn't have to be a $50,000 a year college like even my school, I think that I went to probably cost a crap load more than when I was there, but it was expensive for the time that I went there. It was expensive. Luckily, I was able to get scholarships and crap like that. But
I mean, when you have quote unquote free college, a lot of the time it's not truly free like in other countries. They're just paying more in taxes.
Well, yeah, but we pay a lot in taxes too. We just kind of call them something different.
Yeah. I mean, in all honesty, like the way that we get taxed and everything is a lot different from other countries. Like I know I personally would rather pay, 40, 50% of my paycheck in taxes if that meant that I got absolutely free healthcare, free schooling, free daycare for my children, free dentist. Like, people say, oh, we pay so much in taxes, so much in taxes. But in reality, if you look around in other countries, we kind of don't.
Right. But if we're going to do free or government-sponsored college, I think it should be more in line of the tech schools and that type of training, which provides people an ability to go to 9 months of school and come out with a specific skill set that is in line with today's work requirements and be able to immediately start to contribute to themselves as well as to society, as opposed to spending 4 years in college learning theoretical shit that you may not be able to actually employ when you go out into the workforce. As I've always said, I have a college degree, I have a master's degree. For the most part, what that does is get your foot in the door in traditional thinking companies. But when I was a director or when I was at a .com, and this is back in 2000s, the person on my team that I went to for a real understanding of whether this programming code was going to work was a 19-year-old kid who trained himself on how to program. But he was like the genius who you would go to and say, okay, can you tell me what's going on here? Does this make sense to you? Should we build it this way or should we build it that way? What's going to be the one that is going to be most scalable, most effective? And then I would take that from him and tell the other people, this is what you need to do. You need to do it this way as opposed to this way. And they had college degrees. He had none.
Yeah.
But that's what we have to, as if you're a good leader, you shouldn't be looking at the pedigree of a person. You should be looking at the effectiveness of what they bring, the wealth of knowledge that they may have built on their own, as opposed to stuff that you expect from somebody who's got a degree.
Yeah, no, I agree with that. The video I showed you the other day with the gentleman who was faking being an artist to get on the news. In that video, he actually mentions about how that that reporter is a Harvard grad student, and I believe he dropped out of high school, or he just graduated high school. But there's a very drastic difference in education between those two.
Yeah, absolutely. I'm just kind of looking at some of the comments here and see if we can bring some into this. Did they recall Brandon's onesie? Yeah, they recalled it with Brandon in it.
Yep.
Out of topic, but Gavin, do you have a conspiracy theory that you believe in?
I enjoy to ponder conspiracy theories. I found a couple that I've really enjoyed, but I can't, off the top of my head, I don't think there's one that I would say that I believe in, that I really stand with. Like if somebody brought it up, I'd be like, oh yeah, absolutely, 100%. I really enjoy ideas, and so I kind of just hear what people have to say. I listen to the evidence or lack thereof that they have, and I either think, oh, that's pretty cool, that's interesting, that could be true, or I think, oh, no, that's bollocks, it's not true at all.
I think sometimes the biggest conspiracy theories are the ones that are mainstream thought. Like we have free speech, like we have unbiased news, like we have a government that really cares about the country as opposed to caring about themselves. Those, I think, are, conspiracy theories that are continue to be pushed, that, the government is unbiased and that the government is there to do the best thing for you.
Yeah.
No, the government is there right now for the politicians. Yeah. And if you look at the crap that is going on behind the scenes, even now in terms of, the printing of money and all that kind of stuff that's going on, this is not going to be the best for society. It's though the way that politicians are seeing ways to get money into their area of responsibility, their state possibly, but more so to be able to get them reelected. Yeah. We know that the news is not unbiased. We know that there's cancel
and that's
cultures,
easy to check by two different channels. You have one channel where you watch one story and they say one thing. You have another channel where you watch things, it's a completely different story. Like it's the same topic, but it's two different perspectives on it, just to appeal whatever their general audience is.
Yeah, actually, what PK is talking about here, college is basically a scam. There's a lot to be said for that. I've said this before, where I went back to my college, and they always call me up and they want some sort of contribution. When I went back there, I see all of these recreational things that they built and things that absolutely have nothing to do with education. And I'm like, no, you don't need my money. You're just creating, an environment there that is appealing from a educational perspective. No, you don't need that. And the fact that the government continues to back and offer people these not scholarships, but loans for school, the more that you loan, the more that the universities raise their prices, because they know that the government's going to give more money to the students to go to school. And if the money's available, the schools are going to take advantage of it, the same way that pharmaceuticals do with the medical industry.
John Mulaney does a really, really funny skit about his college asking him for money, and he's pissed off about it because he already gave them like $50,000 or something like that. And then they stopped teaching him because he graduated, and they asked for more money. And he was just boggled by that thought. And all his friends were telling him to be a good thespian and this and that. And he goes, no, they stopped their services. I stopped my payment. Last I checked, you're not housing me anymore. Pretty good.
Yeah,
I
exactly.
used the restroom really quick. I'm so sorry.
Okay, no problem. So yeah, there's a lot of things that I don't believe in some, a lot of these conspiracy theories, whether it be QAnon and some of these things. I think that there's some things that are happening in the world today that could be, attributed to the what QAnon talks about or things along those lines, but I think it's actually ties back to follow the money and follow the control. And there's a lot of people that are trying to build their control and maintain their control. And there's a lot of people that are trying to make money. And even though they're not doing it together because they're kind of following that same path, it appears like a conspiracy theory. So I think that's something that's definitely goes on, and you can interpret it in many different ways. So kind of going back to stuff that's been put out on our comments here, I see this long conversation going on, and I really feel for you, Mandy, and things that can start to feel overwhelming. So one of the things to try and do also, like I think you're doing here, you're getting different people's opinions and so forth, but ultimately the decision is going to end up being yours, right? And you've got to process as much as you can and get as much information as you can, and then you're going to have to take some kind of an action. And it's difficult because we don't even know all the programs that are out there. We don't know where to turn in some cases, and it becomes a challenge. But if you do open your mind and open up to others, there may be other people out there that may have some experience in some of these things that do give you a direction that you might be able to go. And there's no doubt that, again, anything that happens, we have a choice. It may not be something that we want to choose or feel like we want to choose, but we may need to go there. I in the past, back in the 2008-2009 timeframe, I had money in real estate, and then the real estate market tanked, and I ended up having to file bankruptcy. It was not a pleasant time. It was not a choice that I thought I was ever going to have to make, but I made it. And from that point on, I moved forward. And the key was that nobody else was going to pick me up. I had to pick myself up and try to find a way to, change my life, my financial life, especially after having to file bankruptcy. It's something that is an option. And I know people have oftentimes used that in more than once in their life. And there's things that we just need to look at that may not be the direction that we would want to go, things that are not what we would normally consider ourselves to do, even getting help, because we feel like we should be able to do it on our own. Excuse me. But try to reach out to other resources. Sometimes, like you're doing here, the communities around you may have some other ideas, but there are also some agencies that are out there that you can go to. They tend to be nonprofits. They tend not to be associated directly with the government, because the government puts programs in place but doesn't really explain how to access them. And that's where nonprofits come into play. So reach out to those. Even if you reach out to things like shelters, oftentimes those shelters have access to other nonprofits that support communities of people that are having challenges. So I would highly recommend, and I know from past experience, like women's shelters have a network of other agencies that they work with, other resources that they work with that can help to provide opportunities that you didn't know about. So check those things out because they're there. It's just that oftentimes we don't tap into them, or we don't even think that like a women's shelter would be a place to go to get resources on how to pay for a house, or how to get back on my feet with a job, or how to support my family while I'm trying to do these things, or programs that are work education programs to help to get you to at least pay some bills or put food on the table, and at the same time improve a skill set so that you can come and get into a higher paying job afterwards. So check those things out. They're available, and just oftentimes we don't know about them because I wouldn't have expected that to be the case, and wouldn't know about it if I didn't know people who actually had gone to those shelters, or my sister who has supported those shelters. Sometimes she's got a law degree, and she would, help to guide people in how to process bankruptcies and how to access government programs that otherwise seem totally confusing, and we don't know how to access those resources. So check those things out. They're out there, and they may be able to help you with your situation. So reach out to those. On a little bit of a lighter note, I saw way back in the comments here, talking about Jay Bird says we're still holding at 29 years old. I wish I was 29, but guess what? I grew up in Waukegan, Illinois, and Jack Benny. I don't know how many of you know about Jack Benny. He used to be a comedian, and he played a violin, and he had his own shtick, but he never got older than 39. So we actually have a junior high school named after him, and their team name is the 39ers. So it's like in Waukegan, we would never get older than 39 because that's where Jack Benny was from. And we just kind of took on his mantra of always being 39 years old. He grew to be very old, and he was always one of those guys who was a penny pincher. And I remember one time they asked him on a TV night show about finding money. And he's like, I find money every day. And they're like, how do you find money every day? And he says, I look for it. And that money might have been a penny that was dropped on the ground or something. But if your mind is open to it, you oftentimes find it. And anyhow, that's something that even as we grow old physically, we definitely can maintain a state of mind that is younger. And I plan on doing that. And that's why I enjoy really being a part of this community, getting a chance to hear Gavin's perspective and everybody, our guests' perspectives and our audience perspective, because we've got different generations out there, and I get to be the beneficiary of hearing the younger generation and trying to maintain that internally as my life and guiding force as well. So we are supposed to have an amazing guest. Hopefully she comes on here. I haven't seen her yet in our background. I don't know, Fernando, if you're out there, if you have any connection with her, but maybe she doesn't have the connection. So or the meeting information. If you can, Fernando, if you're out there, take a look at that. Brian Tracy, I listen to Jack Benny every day on Sirius Radio. Yeah, it's actually, some of these old time comedians had a shtick that transcends generations and transcends the world, and it's something that we can draw upon, as opposed to some of the comedians today. I sometimes don't get the humor in some of the comedians today, where when I get a chance to listen to the older folks, maybe because that's when I grew up, yes, I do relate to it a little bit more, but I enjoy that. I still enjoy Gilligan's Island too, and things along those lines. So tune into some of these stations, tune into some of these comedians from yesteryear. And, Vegas is actually a great place for that, because some of these old time comedians, Buddy Hackett, I think is still around here. And one of my friends from a childhood also lives out here, and got to be friends with Buddy Hackett. He's like 85 years old or 89 years old, and he's still doing his shtick at some of these casinos. So it's pretty amazing when you get a chance to see how they've transcended life and continue to bring positivity and happiness and laughter to people around them. And that's what they feed on and really enjoy. So, when you
I'm alive.
All right. I'm glad to hear that.
Sorry.
I just mentioning, I don't know if Fernando's out there, but I had mentioned, see if he could possibly get in touch with the guest that we were expecting, because she's not in the background yet. So we'll give her.
You mean the guests that we came on, even though everybody's sick, because we wanted to talk to?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I read her bio and her background and looked at her site, and I was like, wow, this is a TEDx speaker. She works with teens and overcoming challenges that teens are and experiencing in life. And it just seems like really apropos even to today's discussion and some of the things that are being talked about in our comments section.
Yeah.
So,
well, she sounds very interesting. I hope she shows up in the next 5 minutes.
Yeah, absolutely.
That's the limit I'm giving it. I need to put something in my stomach and take a hot bath and all the medication in the cabinets. Not seriously. Don't do that. If you're listening, don't take all the medication in the cabinet. Read the labels.
Yeah, read the labels and be very careful. One of the things, especially that's of concern in today's world, if you've got like a cough and chest congestion, be very careful on that cough medicine that you take, because the body is coughing for a reason. It's trying to get rid of something. It's trying to get rid of toxins. It's trying to get rid of phlegm or mucus that's in your chest and that may be draining from your
break up bacteria that's built up.
Yeah, so you want to make sure, like, if you're taking cough medicine, take a look and see if it's got some sort of an expectorant, which actually activates these little hairs in your lungs to try to bring that phlegm up. You don't want to drown in your own.
I don't do cough syrup or cough medicine anymore. I do pineapple juice. That's what I drink. Really? Yeah. It's I've found it to be a lot more effective, a lot faster. And then since it is natural, it also has some nice vitamins and whatnot in there that are good for the body. Helps boost your immune system.
Do you find that like the juice that comes in like a can is effective, or do you?
Yeah, no, that's what I do. Yeah,
natural pineapple.
Yeah, either or. Sometimes I'll get a pineapple, and I like to get like a fruit a week. So 1 week I'll get like bananas. 1 week I'll get I got a watermelon this week that I got to cut up. Sometimes I'll get like a pineapple or a coconut. But if I have like a really bad cough, then I'll just go get one of the like the cans, that they use at the bar, or I'll use I'll get just one of the big jugs of the all natural pine. I try to get like as natural as I can with it, just because that's why I like the cans. Are less preservatives in it as possible. But no, I definitely find that tends to help. The way that it coats your throat is very soothing, and then something in it itself is supposed to be really good for your immune system and helps out. So it could be complete bullshit. It could be a placebo effect, but at the same time, it's worked wonders for me, and it tastes a hell of a lot better than cough syrup does.
Well, and that's, I think, real important, just along the lines of what Jaybird is saying here. Power words, seek and ask, they will do wonders if used in daily life. Yeah. A lot of times, even just the way that you describe what you're taking, if you believe that pineapple juice is really beneficial to you, then when you take it, even if there is a real benefit to it, it's magnified because you also believe that it's going to do something for you. Yeah. So that placebo effect in that case magnifies the actual natural value of what you're taking as well. And that's, I think, really important. And maybe the most important thing is how we think about it, and the words we choose to describe things is really going to impact our immune system and our mental health. So pick and choose those words that you use to describe things very effectively, and use empowering words, and believe in, even if you believe in like Mandy is saying, I bless my water before drinking it. That's a great way to bring positive frequencies and energy into the water that you drink before you drink it. And
it's a great way to keep away vampires as well.
Yeah. Well, absolutely.
Yeah.
Along with garlic and silver bullets.
Yeah.
Or silver steaks. Whatever.
Wooden stakes, silver bullets, and werewolves. Yeah.
Yeah. So, but really and truly, there's a way to improve the frequencies of the molecules of things by providing energy toward it. And I have a Healy device which actually can generate balancing frequencies for your body, because oftentimes sickness is actually or disease is actually dis-ease, meaning your body is out of balance. So it's a matter of bringing that energy back into balance, and you get healthy.
I remember, and I might be just because I only heard you talk about it maybe like once or twice during Vegas, but I feel like this is relative to the conversation. What is Healy, and how would that help with the energy and everything? Is that is that like a spiritual healing thing, or what?
No,
Healy
no, it's a physical device.
Okay,
it's a physical device, and this device actually I sent healing or balancing frequencies to Jessica the other day. I sent it to her house actually, and ran it for 4 hours. With what this does is it's actually able to analyze the frequencies of your body, of your mind, of your house, and then identify what frequencies are needed to bring things back into balance. And
so is it like a Wi-Fi thing, or
no.
What do you mean it sends a signal?
This is working, and this is, this goes into belief systems and under how you look at things, but this really works in the quantum field. If you talk about like Einstein, or you talk about Tesla, they talked about quantum fields. They talk about the information field. Time and distance really doesn't make any difference when you're working in that realm. And this is based on technology that has been built over 20 years in a much larger device that was built by these geniuses in Germany. And they shrunk it down to this and made it affordable enough to be able to get out to the world, because their goal is to get this device into 100 million households across the world. And I use it. I've used it, like that day that I was sleeping all day.
Yeah.
I ran for the lungs. I ran for my immune system to get rid of toxins. I was constantly running programs, and out of everybody like that was there. Now, granted, I didn't have to do the drive, so that was a major difference. But I'm kind of overweight. I'm old. I have or had some challenges with blood pressure on the edge, some challenges with sugar levels on the edge. And I've been using this device. I rarely take any medications at all, including aspirin or Tylenol or anything. I would much rather go to something that is completely natural. And this frequency device has been very helpful to me in maintaining both a mental and physical health. And if I'm not feeling well, I run the Healy on myself to balance those frequencies, and it tends to work.
So I'm still a little lost. How does it send frequencies then?
Well, each and every one of us has our own individual frequency fingerprint.
Okay.
You know, our natural.
That makes sense. Your electrical signal that you have.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So we actually, it actually can analyze and get your frequency fingerprint. And then with just a few other pieces of information, which go into the cloud, because that's where all the processing power is, it's able to identify better what are going to be your natural balanced levels. And then through the quantum field, through the information field, it sends these to you. And it doesn't matter if you're on the other side of the country or the other side of the world. I've worked with actually energy workers, people that do this, you know, and can feel energy much more than I can. And one of them was in Tennessee, and I was sending her balancing frequencies, and she could feel it. My girlfriend in Chicago can feel it.
Is it kind of like T-Mobile, or like you only have like so much range that you can have, or like if I was all the way in Australia, would you be able to have a connection and make a call to me? Yeah,
absolutely. It doesn't matter. It doesn't matter where. That's why I can send it to Jessica in Alabama. Yeah. And I've sent her frequencies before. I've sent Brandon frequencies. I can send you frequencies based that I truly believe do help.
Yeah.
And really there are people that feel it. And
do you get like different like bars, like different strengths? Like if you're at like a club or something that has really negative energy, would it make it more difficult to send out the frequencies than if you were in like the middle of the woods where it's nice and natural and positive?
Well, yeah, you definitely have environmental things that are out there that can present more negative energy to you. I mean, our bodies are bombarded by energy all the time.
Yeah.
Bombarded by the man-made energies and frequencies, bombarded by our own mental frequencies, bombarded by the energies that are coming from the universe, whether it be from the sun, from the stars, those are constantly bombarding us individually and here on Earth. So it's not something that is unknown. It's not something that, you know, when we were talking about moving more toward the speed of light, or if you talk about how space and time gets warped around massive gravitational fields like the black hole, that's when you start getting more into quantum physics and the information fields. And when you understand those a little bit more, even if you don't understand them, because it's not something that most people are going to understand the ins and outs of, but you can truly work within those arenas, and they do absolutely have people that benefit from it.
Do you find that having it with you and on you makes it easier to feel people's auras, or is that irrelevant to it? Like if for example, we were talking about her the other day, Tony Robinson, like if Tony Robinson's wife came in, but you didn't see her, would you be able to feel her aura more if you just had that in your pocket, if you had that on you?
No, not by just having it on you. You know, if you start tuning into your natural, if you start tuning into energy, you're going to become more sensitive. Some people are more naturally sensitive. My girlfriend, she goes up and she puts her hand on a tree and she can feel the energy of the tree.
Yeah.
I put my hand on the tree and I feel bark.
Fair enough.
So that was one of the things that really, initially, when I was introduced to this, which was back in August of last year, from somebody that I met at Tony Robbins in Fiji. But I didn't immediately feel anything.
Okay.
But then there was a time when I put this on with a balancing frequency program running, and I started to feel my chest start to race, my heart start to race a bit. And I was like, holy shit, I am actually now starting to feel some of this thing that I wasn't in tune with before. And I have felt that many times since now with different programs. And in this, I mean, it's amazing because frequencies run an entire spectrum, right? There's all kinds of different megahertz and things like that are involved in frequencies. So when you might not feel one frequency, when it changes over to another, you might feel it. The other thing that this does, and when you actually have one, is you can connect it to wristbands, and it can actually send microcurrents into your body.
Oh, nice. It's something like an Apple Watch, or would you be like on like your bicep kind of thing?
Well, this you can actually, usually you wear it like attached to like your collar, and then there's a way to attach wristbands through wires, and those microcurrents are kind of like if you've ever had or heard of a TENS unit. TENS units are used, but you can actually feel the electricity. This you can feel it, and it's actually been certified by the FDA as a device for pain relief. But that's a small part of what this can do. Yeah. But it's because of the microcurrents. Now, the best for both a mental and physical microcurrent capability, because your body is made up of the potential between the cell walls, the outside of the cell wall, the inside of the cell wall. Things go through. It's permeable.
Does it just need to be on you, or is it more effective if it's on your skin? Because you said you wear it on your collar. I've dated a lot of girls who like to wear chokers. Could they like put it on the choker and just have it like on like the back or like the side of their neck or something and get the full effect?
Well, yeah, in fact, you don't necessarily even need to have it on you. It all depends on kind of which model, which programs that you're running. Some of them do require more of a physical proximity, and others, like this particular device, which is the higher end device, is one that is able to analyze and send frequencies at a distance. So in that case, when I send the frequencies to Brandon, or when I send them to Jessica.
So could I do like multiple then, where I have one that's great for long distance and then one that's like more like a very concentrated router? It's very like short distance kind of thing? Or it doesn't matter?
It's the same device. It's the same device. It's
nice.
Just, there's
it's all in one
programs. Yeah, it's all in one. It's all in one. So yeah, those are things that we can use, and it's technology that you're not going to hear from your doctor, and doctors are oftentimes not going to say it. But if you go to a naturopath, if you go to a more holistic doctor, they're going to talk about those types of things. If people are used to wearing or looking at having gems around them like amethyst and different types of gems, everything's got its own frequencies. Everything is energy. It's just the state of the energy, the frequency at which, and the energy at which the molecules vibrate, right? But ultimately E equals MC squared, which means energy is just a different state of mass, or mass is a different state of energy. So it's out there, and we generate. That's why I've always said that the power of the mind is far beyond what we perceive it to be. And miracles that are oftentimes created are created by the energy generated from people. And when you have a lot of people that are focused on something, whether it be through prayer or meditation or sweat lodges in indigenous tribes, or those types of things, when you start to have people that are focused on a specific thing or opening up to looking at nothing, right? That's kind of the concept of meditation. It's what happens in between thoughts as opposed to the thought.
Yeah.
That really is the power. And that's where this comes into play. It just actually puts it into a device that you can access on demand, as opposed to having to go through some of those types of meditations or rituals or ceremonies or things along those lines. At the same time, if you use those ceremonies and you're able to clear your toxins, both physical and emotional or energetically, then yes, it becomes more effective. So it's just like if you don't take a lot of vitamins and so forth, then if you don't take a lot of medicine, then when you do take medicine, it is much more impactful than somebody who has been taking medicine all the time. I agree with you, Gavin. It doesn't appear that our guest is going to come on today.
That's unfortunate, but we can always reschedule. That's the beauty of the show. It will continue. There's always tomorrow.
Yeah, Mandy, message me in Facebook, and we can talk about and set you up on the Healy and see if I can send you some frequencies. See if that's going to be advantageous for you. So go ahead and message me on Facebook, and we'll try it out. See how that works. I know that you just said be right back, so I better put something in the comment, or I'll reach out to Mandy directly. But Jaybird, metaphysics and home remedies are really important, and even something like what you were talking about, Gavin, pineapple juice with the acidity and the different frequency that is in the juice and the pineapple itself affect your body, right? And there's a lot of amazing things in plants that do what medications do without having to take medication. And a lot of medications are built on what's actually in plants. So that's why we want to maintain the fauna and diversity of the fauna around us, because we have yet to tap into most of that stuff.
Absolutely. And then before we do our last words, one more thing. You should do the on One Square at a Time. You should talk about Healy and Doctor Strange. You mentioned the quantum realms and everything. I think that could be a lot of fun. That could be a good connection.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. So let's just say, I think you need to be interviewed by Brian. Brian, okay. So just before closing, just to give everybody a little bit of background, I was bio-pre-med in college. So at that time, I used to think that that podiatrists and chiropractors were people that couldn't make it to or through med school, and never really looked at them as being real practitioners. Over the course of time, I began to really start to open up my mind into other things. And a lot of it had to do with the time once I started to get exposure to Tony Robbins, which began back in the early 90s when I was getting out of active duty Air Force, and then expanding my mind to realize that there's other things out there. And over the course of time, I mean, behind me, you may see I do have Singing Bowl back here. They have frequencies that you can use. Part of the reason for going to India and Nepal and Tibet.
You see the lights shining in right now from the window. Actually, it's kind of illuminating it.
Well, and actually behind my baby Yoda, is a salt lamp, and that salt lamp also has the lamp in there actually brings out some of the ions from the salt. So that's helping. That's good for cleansing energies and toxins in the area. So I opened my mind to these things and realized I've taken almost no medications for a long time. I rarely go to see a doctor. The last time I went to a doctor really was because I had a little hernia. I mean, I could actually feel, the intestines starting to come through the abdominal wall. So that is not something that a Healy is necessarily going to be able to fix. So there's a place for, there's a time and place for allopathic medicine as well as functional or holistic medicine. And as you start to recognize these differences out there and recognize that the ancient civilizations on Earth were using these types of things, way before pharmaceuticals were ever in existence. You had apothecaries, which were, the then the form of pharmaceuticals, which oftentimes they sold snake oil and crap like that, or they were using mercury to heal you. And in fact, mercury would kill you. But those types of things have come up over the time. And I think that's why sometimes when people are exposed to these things, they poo-poo them and say, it's all woo-woo or poo-poo. And there is actually a lot of value in a lot of things that we don't even know about. But if you open your mind and you look at opportunities to stay away from those pharmaceuticals, because I really do not like pharmaceuticals in general. And they are the ones who also fund medical schools. So doctors come out of medical schools being trained in a way that the pharmaceutical companies want them to be trained, because they're the ones also contributing the money to the schools so that they can run their programs. So be aware of those things. But yeah, these are different alternatives that are out there. And do your own research, do your own smell the roses, the true roses, as opposed to the chemicals that are being used to act like they smell like roses, because those are actually not good for you. So pay attention to those things. But I think, Gavin, as you were saying, our guest is not going to be on the show today. I am glad. Let's see, Brian, be careful on things like metformin. And there's a lot of things that are given to people like candy today that are now creating massive imbalances in your body's natural energy and frequencies. So be aware of those. But wish we would have had the guest on today. I'm glad there was this conversation going on in the background. Hopefully, Mandy, that's been beneficial to you. And again, Mandy, reach out to me, and we'll see if we'll set you up on and
make a connection
frequencies to you. Yeah, absolutely. So everybody, appreciate you being on the show today.
Thank you so much, guys.
Let's go through some last words anyhow.
Some last words. Oh, geez.
So why don't you go ahead and start?
Yeah. So, as you know, because we keep bringing it up, nobody today is feeling well physically. Some of us not mentally either. But we still show up for a little bit. And while the guests did not arrive, we still did an hour and a half show. It's not our full show, but it's something. And you have to remember that in life. There's going to be hurdles. There's going to be issues. There's going to be things that come up where it stops your plans, where it derails you a little bit. And while you won't always get everything done, if you can get just a part of it done, half of it, a quarter of it, just get it started, then that is more than if you did nothing at all. And that is still progress.
Absolutely. And, for me, it's really when life's challenges come around, look for new ways of thinking, new ways of evaluating it, reach out to people, consider different things that you may not have considered in the past. Open your mind. As I was just explaining, my mind has changed dramatically over my life, and don't hold on to the old ways of thinking just because they're traditional or everybody thinks that way, because guess what, not everybody thinks that way. And it's a matter of really starting to gather more information on different ways of thinking and then make your own choices. But choose the one thing that we can choose to do, and that's going to affect your frequencies and energy all the time, is choosing to be hydrated, choosing to physically move when you're feeling like you're getting into a depressed state. Change your physiology, and change the words that you're choosing to describe your situation. If you choose negativity, or you choose negative connotations and generalizations, they're going to affect you in that way. So just look in the dictionary, look in a thesaurus for positive words, and start changing those negative words that you may use to describe your situation into positive ones, as opposed to why does it always happen to me? Think about how can I do something different? How can I make my life better? And when you start asking that question that way, your brain will start looking for answers that way. So let's control our minds and our bodies as much as possible and not look to the outside to bring it in, but to look for the inside to bring it out. I really love the show. Gavin, thank you for being on the show as well. I know you weren't feeling well. Yep. And Brandon hopefully is feeling better. I know he was thinking about possibly even having to go to the doctor again today. So everybody take care. We love y'all. We'll see you tomorrow, and have a great day.